Hi everyone. This video is a brief introduction to the next book, The Best We Could Do by Thuy Bui. So like The Silence of Our Friends, it's a graphic novel. Also like it relies on family stories. So I think the difference is, on the other hand, that while The Silence of Our Friends is based on a true story, in The Best We Can Do, the author is trying to find the story. So Mark Long puts himself in a story as a child, whereas Thuy Bui is in the story as a writer. So it's got a little bit more of a mood and a representation of discovery, and that makes it structured in a lot more differently. It's more non-linear, which maybe is a pro and con for you as a reader. And then the difference between truth and fiction in each, I would say, is small. And then also, Bui's book takes place over the course of 40 years, as opposed to The Silence of Our Friends was just a couple months in this family's life. So that's just things to keep in mind in terms of writing about this and reacting to it and managing the experience as a reader. Bui wrote the story as she became a mother and did not want to bring trauma from the past into her children's life. So her own parents, particularly her father, were traumatized by their refugee experience when escaping Vietnam and settling in California. They never 100% adjusted. Also, Bui struggled because her family brought some of these traditional values into their lives in America. So there's a cultural clash between the generations, which can be a classic experience of children whose parents are immigrants. Bui's parents also came from different social classes in Vietnam, and when the family moved to the States, her mother became the breadwinner and her father stayed home with the children, which probably was not a good fit for him. So Bui had a lot of experience seeing her father brooding, which you're going to see coming up in the book. So Bui digs deep into her parents' past, which includes her own past, to better understand why her parents are the way they are. So you can think about this as maybe a story of forgiveness. So my advice for tackling this book is to find parts of it to focus on and also to write about a few scenes, and I'm going to give you tips about that in a minute. Some of you might relate to the book and maybe bring in your own family stories, and that's fine too. So in your papers, a couple of you noted that The Silence of Our Friends begins with an image of an execution by a Vietnamese soldier, and it was depicted on television. So this was a famous image, and it was known as the Saigon execution. And here it was in The Silence of Our Friends. So the distribution of this photo was a turning point in the Vietnam War and led to more resistance against it. This also was a turning point for the role of media in depicting the war. So previously, newspapers and also any other media outlet might be less inclined to critique the government. So this was a paradigm shift. Now we're used to it, although we have sort of CNN on one side and Fox on the other, and then social media is a hot mess in between. So we can see this playing out in this micro situation with Jack Long, who resists the dominant culture at the time and comes up with his own way of resisting as a newspaper reporter. So the individual making change perhaps is a theme of The Best We Can Do, the theme of Silence of Our Friends. The Best We Could Do almost has the opposite kind of message. It depicts the same photograph. And in this case, in the book, Bo, who's Thuy's father, was a witness or knew the cast of characters in this photograph, but the turning point in his life was long to come, and he had a completely different point of view on this photo. So I think that can show the importance of individuals telling their stories and also the importance of point of view in understanding the past and storytelling. So the book isn't kind of a newish book, and it's been popular with students. So that is why I chose it. The library has it, so you can look at it online. I don't know if it's the best book to look at online, but with time and money constraints, I understand that might be a place to start. So you can check it out if you don't have the book already and see how it feels to read it online. So now I'm going to shift and try and show you that tips handout that I made, which I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not able to edit it very well because when I downloaded, the images go away. So it's very rough, but I'm just going to walk you through a process that I might have undergone writing this paper, and that using my method that I'm promoting, which is just going scene by scene and be careful to show who's doing what, and also using direct evidence. This can sometimes make your writing task easier because you're digging into the book, you're slowing down, other than trying to take on writing about the whole book, which can be really overwhelming. So let me bring that up. Did it disappear? Oh yes, it disappeared. Let's see if I can find it. Files. Yay. Okay. All right. So who is doing what? So there's a lot going on in here. Seems busy. But really what's going on is Bui having a conversation with her mother and the tension between her and her mother about having a live-in boyfriend. So in 1999, Bui was surprised when she moved in with her boyfriend. Her mother didn't disown her. So here I'm just using direct evidence, minorly, right? What happened, bringing in the conversation. A few years later, when Bui's older sister, her mother told her sister that living with a boyfriend before marriage was something you just didn't do. So that's kind of related to a memory. All right, so what's going on in here? And I have to rework that. That seems to be missing some words. Okay. So this that comes up a lot is Bui's father's angst. So here is an image of Bui observing her father being distressed as a young child. So here we say, who is doing what? So Bui's father was not fully equipped to be a father who took on the responsibility when their mother went to work. Bui's father was distant emotionally. Bui depicts him smoking as if lost in thought or lost in the past. So there's a couple things going on here. There's Bui's father not being fully equipped, and then there's also Bui as a writer showing or depicting something. All right, so kind of sorting through and separating those two things. And then also if you're going to discuss the method that Bui uses, maybe that would be its own paragraph. Maybe you want to combine those. But slowing down each panel, there's probably a lot to say. And you can also quote from the actual text, right? Here's another example. Who is doing what? So Bui came to understand that Bui's distant parenting style was an effect, I think that's supposed to mean Bo. His distant parenting style was an effect of his traumatic childhood when the Vietnam city he was involved in was occupied by the French. He also didn't have good role models for parents. When he was 7, he went to live with relatives. When researching her father's story, Bui realized that the terror she felt under his care as a child was a long shadow of his own. So again, I pulled from the text something that Bui herself said as a narrator. So there's a couple things to quote. You can quote the narrator who's interpreting the situation. You can also quote the people speaking. So I think up here there's an example of people speaking. Right, here's her mother saying things. Right, there's a lot of narration. Also up here, I just said it was 1999 because up there it says it was 1999. Okay, so just a combination of summary, direct citing, taking your time to go through each scene or scenes that you like. And then once I've gotten to this point, and I also noticed a lot of typos in my example, so I can be humble about that. This handout is, like I said, hard to fix because I lose the images, so I'm being a little lazy. So once I have these maybe 3 scenes, you know, the whole scene of Bowie's mother or father smoking, I feel like there's ways to tie that together. Maybe my paper might be about the difficulty of having a father who was distant, and then also maybe a couple more scenes about what actually happened to Bo that made him that way. And then building a thesis or a main idea about this idea of finding out more about your parents to understand them in order to be free of the past yourself, which I think is a main goal of the novel and the writing enterprise that this author takes on, is to free yourself from the past, but also understand the past. All right, so just I'm going to be in closing here. I've started to read your papers, and I would say, given the task, you're doing a pretty good job. Don't take it personally when I cross things out. A few things I'll just be looking for is cutting the fluff, bringing context, trying to come up with analytical and creative topic sentences to create flow, unity in your paper, some main idea. And in a draft, that's not all going to be there, and that's okay. These are drafts. I also know that we're all struggling with time management with all this online learning. So I'm just going to say, do the best you can, hang in there, and communicate with me if you're struggling. Because, I mean, I get it. I'm struggling too with the new normal, which I hate that word. Sorry I used that word. With just this semester being online. All right? Okay, well, take it easy and email me with questions, and good luck.